Good day, people of the internet. I'd like to welcome you to the 5th episode of Matt and Matt at the Movies. I'm your host, Matt Parkinson, and my co-host today, here to atone for a mistake he made last week, is Matt Jarrell.
Good day, people of the internet. So, as was just stated, yes, I have a small crime to atone for. Last week, during our worst of 2014 discussion, in the middle of my rant against Tyler Perry's Single Moms Club, I brought up a music video and director Tim Story. Now, while my criticism of that music video and that director are valid, they have nothing to do with Tyler Perry's Single Moms Club. That is actually from Tim Story's film Think Like a Man 2. I apologize for this error. I am once again human, so sorry.
This is becoming a recurring theme on the show for you longtime listeners.
Well, in case you can't tell, we don't do a whole lot of major editing for this. We're the Birdman of podcasts. We do this all in one take because we are awesome. Except when we're not.
Except when we're not. Today on the show, we'll be looking into the two new wide releases that came out this week, Project Almanac and The Loft. We'll also be discussing two 2014 releases that are finally getting an expansion, A Most Violent Year and 2 Days, 1 Night. We'll also be doing something that will become a recurring monthly segment where we look back and chat about the month that was, and then give you a look forward to the month that's coming. So the first film we're talking about today is 2 Days, 1 Night. Marion Cotillard stars as Sandra Baye, a woman who has been away from her job for quite a while after suffering a nervous breakdown. She's ready to return to work now, but there's a problem. Her co-workers have been given an ultimatum by their boss. They can each receive a €1,000 bonus and have Sandra let go, or they can let her return to work and forfeit the extra money. The vote already took place and Sandra was voted out, but a revote is scheduled for the next Monday. Sandra now has the entire weekend to visit each of her co-workers in an attempt to persuade them to change their vote. She needs a majority to keep her job. There are 16 co-workers, only 2 of whom wanted to keep her on. And that's pretty much it. Gerald, what do you think of 2 Days, 1 Night?
How have I never seen a Dardenne film before? Because if it's anything like this, I want to see so many more. This film is wonderful. I can completely see why you had this in your top 20 of last year. I love Marion Cotillard in this movie.
She's great.
She's fantastic. I mean, playing the different shades of Sandra's character. I believe that she has gone through a depressive nervous breakdown in both what she says, but then also her physical performance with the crying, and part of it is also down to the writing from the Dardannes as well. Oh, this movie is so wonderful. I love her character so much.
It really makes you understand why people were hoping that she'd get an Oscar nomination.
Absolutely, and she deserves that Oscar nomination by a long shot. I think one of the things that really impresses me is these long and static shots where it's just focusing on her, whether it's her laying in bed or sitting in a car or whatever. And it seems unnerving at first because it's like, why is the camera lingering so long? But I think one of the other big things with this that is highlighted by those long static shots is this is a very European film.
Yeah.
It does not feel like an American film where you get all this clipped editing and all that. It feels very real, very human, and you don't see that really in a lot of American films these days. So I give massive praise to the Dardannes for being able to pull that off for me.
And then it's not just about her and her campaign for work. It highlights, like, it has commentary on the political system. It has that on the working class in Belgium. There's personal morals that you get to think about. I mean, she basically goes to each person in the movie and she gives the same spiel to each of them and tries to convince them, hey, I kind of need this job.
Yeah, I love how that works. I mean, you really feel like you sympathize with her coworkers because, yeah, they really want this bonus, but then you also sympathize with her because, okay, you see she's married and she has 2 small children and they need her salary in order to keep paying the bills. So it's a real dilemma, and it feels more human in that regard. It doesn't feel like a cheap ploy that the film is trying to pull for sympathy, and I love that.
And unlike what I would presume an American film would do, it doesn't exactly cheap out on the ending.
No, it doesn't. I mean,
we don't want to spoil it, but
it's
a compromise is offered, and the film doesn't exactly go that route.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, it still feels like a hopeful and resolved ending.
Yeah.
Rather than some cheap pull. And I'm like you, I was very surprised by that, and I was very grateful for that.
Yeah.
So one of the other interesting things for me is the relationship between Sandra and her husband is more believable to me than most romance films I've seen. Because it really feels like, hey, these are two people who have been married and are trying to deal with all these different problems, whether it's her having a nervous breakdown or still trying to raise two kids or dealing with the financial stresses that her losing her job could bring. I love their interactions together, when he first comes home and finds her feeling depressed, or there's a really great scene where they're in a car together driving and she's just sitting there and they have this exchange about a song, and he's worried about making her depressed with it, and he turns it up instead, and they share this moment where like they hold hands, and it feels, again, I keep saying this, but it feels human, and I love that it feels real.
It feels very much like, almost like a documentary.
Like of a fashion. It doesn't feel as cold as a documentary where it's trying to recitation of facts. It's as if we've been granted a window into these people's lives, and we're flies on the wall watching their lives play out through good and bad.
Yeah.
So, wonderful film. I wish I'd gotten to see this before making my list, because this probably would have made my top 20 of 2014 list, because it was. I love this film.
Luckily, I did get to see it, and it made mine.
Yes, lucky you. So, another film that got a wider expansion this year that we're getting to see is A Most Violent Year. This is set in 1981, which is one of, if not the most violent year in the history of New York City. It tells the story of Abel Morales, who's played by Oscar Isaac. He's the child of immigrants who's living the American dream by running a profitable heating oil business with his daughter of a small-time gangster, wife, Anna, who's played by Jessica Chastain. Now, Abel is trying to expand his business by acquiring a valuable waterfront property, but the rampant crime in the city affects even him when trucks of his oil company's oil is stolen and then sold off, costing him money and resources. But at the same time, he's also under investigation by an upstart district attorney played by David Oyelowo. And so, Mr. Parkinson, this film also made your top 20 of 2014. Why is that?
Because at its core, it's about the morals of its characters. And it does such a good job of painting that picture. I mean, come on. The guy's last name is Morales.
Exactly.
That's very subtle, right?
Yeah, that's on the nose. That's a problem for me.
Well, it's not that bad.
It's like naming a regular guy John Everyman. You literally named him Abel Morales, Abel Morals. I'm like, yeah, thank you, J.C. Chandor. You're being a little on the nose there. So, yeah.
In addition to that, I mean, we've got Oscar Isaac. He's great. We've got Jessica Chastain. She's great. We've got this story, which is, it was interesting enough to keep me watching for the entire time. And I guess one of the problems I have with it is that despite being called a most violent year, it's not really all that violent.
No, it's not, and that kind of bothers me.
I'll agree with that. I mean, you've got a couple of scenes where people get jumped randomly, and it's an attempt to keep you on edge, I guess.
It barely is violent at all.
I know.
I mean, the most violent scene is one at the end, which comes out of bloody nowhere.
Literally bloody.
Yeah, well, and then the bigger thing for me is the fact that it shows up, like, it feels so abrupt that I'm like, where did you come from? Because he'd been in that character had been in the movie periodically, and then he vanishes, and then randomly shows up at the end. I'm like, why are you here? But okay, so I agree with you that Oscar Isaac is good in the movie, and as is Jessica Chastain. Now, I don't believe that Jessica Chastain is a woman from Brooklyn who was raised by a gangster, because she doesn't sound like that at all. She sounds pretty much like Jessica Chastain. The direction that J.C. Chandor provides is very deliberate, but it's so deliberate at times that it feels rather unnatural to me.
Okay.
And then he's also the screenwriter, which, again, I praise him for it. it's good, but it feels like it meanders occasionally, which, I mean, this is, I guess, for me, part of the difficulty with having a 2-hour film is that it feels like it's a little too long.
Yeah.
So that kind of bothered me a little bit. I already talked about how Abel Morales' name is way too on the nose for me, although I'm also sort of baffled. We never find out actually what country his parents were from. I mean, we know it's a Spanish-speaking nation, but is it Spain? Is it Mexico? Is it one of the other...
I don't think that's that important.
Important.
He's an immigrant who manages to get his way up through the oil business.
It's not important, but it's a little detail that I would at least like to have known. But
Okay.
so that's more of a nitpick. I grant you, that's not as big a deal. My biggest problem: it feels as though J.C. Chandor marathoned the Godfather movies and then said, "Yep, I can do that too," because like the cinematography and the writing and the performance that he gets out of Oscar Isaac is so much like Al Pacino in The Godfather as Michael Corleone that it is amazing. I know people are going to say it's an homage, but for me it's so just, it smacks me in the face. I'm watching Oscar Isaac play Al Pacino play Michael Corleone, except he's Spanish speaking instead of Italian. So it feels like he's trying to do The Godfather and paging Mr. Coppola.
He's not quite good enough.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, Principal Coppola would like to see you in his office right now. I mean, and again, it's a good movie. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie by any stretch. It's a good movie. It's just not as great as I think some people say it is. So I don't want to give the wrong impression. It's just there's a lot of these issues that add up for me that I can't ignore.
I can see that. I mean, I saw it like a day or two before finalizing my top 20. Mm-hmm. So I find I'm often higher on movies like right after seeing them than I am a few days later.
I guess. I mean,
there's a chance it might not make it if I were to go back and redo it now.
Fair enough. I mean, for my part, I noticed these things like right after I got out of the theater. So it was, I mean, especially the Godfather thing, because it's just it's so there that it's like, I'm sorry, he's copying the Godfather. So, again, a good movie, just not as great as I was expecting.
One thing that I'd also like to mention, I guess I've been more negative on it than positive, but it's set in New York City. It never once feels like New York City.
See, I would actually disagree. I think the grimy and gritty feel that it has is reminiscent of what New York City was like at that time. And you get the waterfront aspects with all the high rises and such, and obviously I don't think it was actually New York City, but it feels like New York City to me at least. But then I don't know, maybe I'm also biased because I'm the American and you're not, so who knows.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's just how it plays to people. I mean, you've got
that could be too.
Yeah. So the next movie on our list is the first new release of the week, and that's Project Almanac. Essentially what this movie is it's 5 teenagers, a time machine, and it lets them fool around with it for over an hour, after which point things start to go wrong and they have to solve the problems caused by the time travel by using the only logical explanation that's there. And then completely going away from it anyway. It's been shot in a found footage format, filmed with actors you've likely never heard of, and comes to us from a director without a previous show under his belt. It was delayed almost an entire year, for reasons we'll never find out. And with all that said, Gerald, how much did you hate Project Almanac?
A lot. I mean, can we please just stop making found footage movies?
I'm right there with you.
I'm sick of them. I mean, I'm higher on Chronicle than you are, but Chronicle is like the only good found footage movie other than, okay, Cloverfield, I think possibly could also be up there, but
the amount of found footage movies that have benefited from the format are greatly outweighed by the ones to which it's been a detriment.
It makes no sense, because oftentimes when you try to actually think about the mechanics of how that works, where they're putting together these various disparate elements of footage, it's like, okay, how did you get that camera footage?
Yeah.
There's no... I've seen a ton of films where it's, okay, you got that from another camera. You weren't actually getting it from the camera that you were holding, that doesn't really work. And then the camera work always looks professional, despite the fact that it's supposed to be filmed on a cheap handheld camera, that, especially for teenagers, I mean, good grief. And some of them are even filming on their phones. I was like, this seems like a very high quality... Like, I have a good phone with a good camera. And
it's not this good.
Exactly. There's no way. So that part bothers me to no end. The characters are bland. They're so boring. And there's stereotypes to no end. I mean, why is the main character considered this picked on nerd because he likes science? I mean, I'm sorry, he's pretty good looking. He can have normal conversations. He's physically well built. It's not like he's some unsociable loser.
And he's not even really the one. I mean, they do a whole let's go back and fix the bullying thing, and it's not even for him. It's for his sister, who looks just like a normal teenage girl.
Well, that one makes a bit more sense because teenage girls can be rather catty that way, so I buy that one a little bit. But I don't get the bullying from the lead character at all. The plot is utterly, utterly silly and completely inconsequential.
You talked about meandering in A Most Violent Year. This one meanders for 70 minutes of its running time.
That's not meandering. That's taking a whole another path altogether. It's one thing to take a detour. This one goes off like completely opposite direction. I mean, when your main conflict is, oh, I have to go back in time because I screwed up when I could have kissed this girl. That's not conflict movie. That's boring teenage shenanigans that we've seen 1,000 times.
And it literally does take over an hour to get to the point where there's any sort of conflict whatsoever.
Which, after sitting through that hour, I no longer care about the conflict because it doesn't feel like conflict.
And because none of the characters make any sort of impression.
Oh, of course not. And, I mean, why should they? They're stock stereotypes that aren't worth anything because they're not really fleshed out at all.
And they're even... These guys are mostly supposed to be smart people, and then they're just not at all.
They're very, very stupid. I mean, admittedly, they're teenagers, so we're allowed to forgive them a little bit for their stupidity, but this goes beyond normal teenage stupidity. And I mean, I think part of my other issues is we need to stop making time travel movies, or at least get writers who can actually do time travel, when your characters actually are talking about better time travel films and movies like Looper and Terminator and Doctor Who. You're doing it wrong. You not invite comparisons.
I know, exactly. The problem is you mention those and I go, hey, I could be spending my time watching one of those instead of this.
Exactly.
And that would have been so much better use of my time.
The time travel sequences aren't even that good.
They hold hands in a circle and then we're back in the past.
Yeah, I mean, the special effects are not that great at all. And then, I'm sorry, does time travel work like teleportation?
No.
Because, like, they go from their school and somehow they go to Lollapalooza, which would require teleportation, not just time travel, unless they're just cutting out the time it takes for them to travel, I guess.
But they should have shown that at least.
Yeah, and then the fact that I actually had to sit there and listen to a live performance of Imagine Dragons again, as though I didn't get enough of it in 2013 and somewhat 2014. I didn't need to hear that again.
But it's radioactive.
Yes, you're forcing me to remember the host, and that's not a good thing. And then, how is it that the old camera is still working perfectly functionally after 10 years of being in the attic?
Because it's a movie.
That doesn't make sense.
I know.
And then, of course, the ending.
See, the ending, like the whole the only real message of the movie is that you don't get a second chance. I mean, we get a whole speech about how you don't get second chances, and it's supposed to be this heartwarming thing, and it's not, because the characters are all there. And then the ending comes and completely contradicts that.
Just a little bit. And also, how is it that glass and metal burns that easily in a trash can fire?
Again, because it's a movie.
That doesn't excuse bad screenwriting.
I know.
Ugh.
Project Almanac, it's a frustrating watch.
I can tell Michael Bay produced this movie. I know he
Yeah.
didn't direct it, but
It's a Platinum Dunes movie, for those who are unaware. That's Michael Bay's genre. Well, I don't want to call it a genre studio, but it's mostly for horror movies, and now, well, this.
Well, he also did TMNT with Platinum Dunes. So,
That's true.
Yeah, but movies that should not be made, basically.
I don't think the studio has turned out a single good movie. I'd have
Not
to
that I
check on
can-
that to be sure, but
Off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
no.
It's just not surprising.
I mean, it's been remaking bad horror movies with the TMNT, and we did this.
Yeah, just Project Almanac is bad. Don't bother with it.
That's pretty much the Coles Notes version of that.
Pretty much. Unfortunately, we also got another movie this year, or this weekend. The Loft. The Loft tells the story of 5 married men who are played by Carl Urban, James Marsden, Wentworth Miller, Eric Stonestreet, and Matthias Schoenaerts, who all share ownership of a fancy loft in New York City. Now, the reason why they own this loft is because it allows them to use it to be able to discreetly meet their respective mistresses. And then, the dead body of a murdered woman is found in the loft, and causing the men to suspect each other of having committed the crime because they're the only ones with the keys. This leads to friendships being tested and secrets being revealed. Mr. Parkinson, what did you think of this film?
This is another one that I liked more as I was watching it, and then after I watched it, I started to really, really sour on it. So it's a mystery movie, because we got to figure out who murdered this woman. And as I was watching it, I couldn't figure out the mystery. So I'm like, well, this is a successful mystery movie. And then it ends and you find out what it was and you groan.
Groan is putting it mildly. I hate this movie so much that I can barely express it. It feels like a made-for-TV film for the Lifetime channel with name actors and a bigger budget, and it occasionally plays like a TV show for me. It's a terribly unnecessary remake of a Belgian film from a few years ago. And this one also was made about 3 years ago and then sat on the shelf until now. I wish it had sat on the shelf forever, because I never need to see this film again. I wish I hadn't seen it the first time. All of these characters are horrible.
And
The
not shallow characters, but just like horrible people.
Monsters.
Yeah.
I mean, the men are misogynistic to no end, to the point where I want to beat them senseless repeatedly. The women are either shrews, ice queens, or self-declared whores, which, yay for good characterization of women. No. There's no story structure to this movie. It's all told in flashbacks.
Yeah.
It starts with the ending and then proceeds to tell its flashbacks within flashbacks, even to a point.
Yeah.
And the mystery is so convoluted and the characters are so unlikable that I don't even care about the mystery anymore because it's so stupid.
See, that's basically the reason why it soured on me. When I was watching it, the mystery's it's there and I can't figure it out, and that's fine. But you can't care about these characters. I mean, the film wants to present them as almost our heroes. I mean, it wants us to sympathize with them at least somewhat. You can't do that. These are awful people.
These men are worse than the kid from The Boy Next Door.
Yeah.
At least he was boring. These guys are just like the despicable scum of the earth are some of these people. I mean, the acting from these guys is okay to bad. I mean, it's wooden most of the time.
Yeah.
Eric Stonestreet scares the absolute mess out of me with his overly sexually talking character that's just so creepy. Matthias Schoenaerts
Who was in the original.
I don't know why he's back for this, because his character is a coke fiend rapist one of our heroes, ladies and gentlemen. Why? I don't know.
And he's not even like the film. It doesn't try to present these guys as bad. That's the most confusing part to me. There's no self-awareness here. There's no, oh hey, these guys probably should deserve some comeuppance. No.
The closest thing to self-awareness is there's a scene where two of the guys go into the loft and they find that Matthias Schoenaerts's character has raped a woman, and one of them has this kind of epiphany that, oh, prostitutes are people too, because he's been seeing a prostitute on the side and what have you. And so he's like, oh, I love you now. I'm like,
what?
No, your characterization is not going to work this time. I can't sit with a character who's been terrible and then, oh, he suddenly has this epiphany. I'm like, you didn't earn that epiphany movie. I'm sorry. Your character may be the best of these monsters, but he's still a monster.
He's still not any good at all.
No.
And then we find out everything, and then there's more plot twists.
M. Night Shyamalan would ring this film and say, dude, you're going too far.
Give it a break.
There's one too many twists here, people. Stop it.
At least one, maybe like 6.
6 would be putting it mildly. I'm like, oh, wait, no. We got one more character secret to reveal. Like, okay, that's creepy.
And, I mean, you can't figure out the mystery because the movie hides things from us. It cheats. It reveals pretty much everything through the flashbacks. And the flashbacks somehow are always related to the dialogue we're having. And characters remember things from the flashbacks right after we get to see them. So I guess they're all having some combined flashback.
Apparently.
And yeah, the movie, it hides things from us until we're worthy.
Now, see, I wouldn't have mind the flashbacks as much if it had just told the story basically chronologically, and then you get kind of a flashback there at the end, maybe, to reveal the twist.
Yeah, it'd be fine.
This entire film is flashbacks.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that doesn't work in this case.
Especially when it's flashbacks within flashbacks, and then sometimes it's hard to keep track of what's happened at what time frame.
It's one of those instances where non-linear storytelling should have been scrapped, because it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Anyway, it seems like nobody really saw The Loft this weekend. I mean, it's going to earn less than $2 million, probably.
Which is amazing, because they released it in almost 2,000 theaters in the U.S.
Which is just astonishing.
Just a bit.
And it's not like this is a strong weekend.
No. Well, at least not strong for most films.
No.
There's one particular film that's going to do really well.
It gets one more weekend at the top, and then...
Yeah, then that's going to be gone.
Hopefully that's done. Could you imagine if American Sniper held on for another weekend with 3 bigger releases next week?
The sad thing is I can actually see that happening.
Oh, I can't.
I can.
There's no way that
I
SpongeBob loses to it.
In the U.S., I can see it happening.
Okay.
So that actually transitions rather nicely. With this new releases out of the way, we want to talk about the month of January, kind of give a retrospective, but then we also want to look forward to February. So what did you think about January?
It wasn't the worst January we've had on record.
Technically correct.
I mean, I guess we had one really good movie this month, which was Paddington.
Yay, Paddington. Go see Paddington if you haven't seen
Paddington was great.
And even if you have seen Paddington, go see it again. Paddington was awesome.
Paddington's better. Well, I mean, if you have 2 days, 1 night, you should go see that.
Okay, this is true.
But if Paddington, I mean, it should still be playing by you, and it's better than basically everything else that's in the theaters right now.
Yeah, like, there's nothing in terms of the new releases for January that even comes close to matching.
No, I mean, like, the second best movie of this month might have been The Wedding Ringer.
The second movie is The Wedding Ringer. And I'm like, who would have guessed that the Kevin Hart comedy is somehow the second best film of the month? But that just shows you how bad everything else was.
I mean, January is historically bad. It's always bad. It gets the movies dumped that the studios just want to get rid of. I mean, that's why we finally got The Loft.
Yeah. I mean, we kick off January with the obligatory first weekend horror film, and I mean, The Woman in Black, we know, was just bad.
Yeah.
Unscary.
Well, the first one was bad. The second one is worse.
The first one was okay. The second one is terrible. Not scary, unoriginal, weak characterization.
And then we move wonderfully on to Taken 3. Which might be worse.
It is worse, in my opinion. I mean, it's trying to be an action film, but the action sequences are bad. The editing makes it look horrible. Liam Neeson looks his age now, finally, in these action movies.
Which is too bad. We got a good run, though.
Yeah,
what, 5 years as Liam Neeson as badass action hero?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, but and he's still going to be doing it this year because he's got an action movie called Run All Night that comes out in March.
Hey, maybe it'll be better. Maybe he was just tired of playing Brian Mills.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, A Welcome on the Tombstones last year was actually pretty decent with him.
It wasn't really an action movie, though.
Yeah, I mean...
It didn't require him to do a whole parkour sequence.
This is true. There's no jumping over fences here.
And there's no jumping over fences, which requires 5 cuts just to jump over one fence.
Well, that, and then, let's be honest, that wasn't him jumping the fences.
Oh, I know.
That was his body double.
We filmed most of it from behind, and then we cut to a camera angle that's way below and only focuses on the torso. And like, this is not how you film an action movie, guys.
Not at all. At least Paddington saved that weekend by being good. And
no, Paddington was the next weekend.
Was it?
Yeah, we got Inherent Vice and Selma that weekend. Which, if there's one thing that I'm always thankful for in January, it's the previous year's expansions that almost saved the weekend.
Almost. I mean, Selma was an awesome film. It made my top 10, top 5, top 2 of 2014, and your top 20.
Yeah.
Inherent Vice was at least a wacky trip.
Interesting enough to keep our attention for most of it.
It helps when you have characters who are so trippy on drugs that it's beautiful. Oh, Joaquin Phoenix, please do another one of those where you're playing a tripped out druggie.
I mean, Inherent Vice is an hour longer than Taken 3, and yet is nowhere near as boring.
No.
And it's not an action movie.
How could it be boring? It's got too many insane characters to be boring.
I know.
Oh, yeah. And then the next weekend, we start talking about Paddington, and we talked about how great that was. I mean, just an amazing family film that just everybody can enjoy because it's not patronizing. It's genuinely funny and has a genuine heart behind it.
It's so sweet.
I love it.
I mean, you have to be the most cynical... I'm the most cynical person, and I loved Paddington.
And like I said during my review, if you don't like it, you have a heart made of stone, covered in a thick layer of ice, encased in a steel box. Because, Paddington is so fun. I love Paddington. The Wedding Ringer, how that managed to be the second best film of the year in the same weekend, I don't know. Kevin Hart being not obnoxious, that's enough to elevate a movie to second best of January.
Yeah, and he and Josh Gad, they had good chemistry.
They did.
There were enough laughs.
There was. There were a few painful ones, but still a few good ones. And I don't know. Maybe it's just because there's
it might just be the quality beforehand was so bad.
Pretty before and after. Let's be honest, because we also got Black Hat that weekend.
Yeah,
which was boring.
Oh, Black Hat was. Speaking of movies with the heart encased in stone and ice and in a box, that's Black Hat right there.
Yay, Thor! You're a computer hacker. Oh wait,
no, you're not.
And let's advertise China because China's wonderful. We love China.
Worked for Transformers. They got lots of money from it.
It didn't work for Black Hat.
No.
Black Hat bombed.
Has Black Hat even opened in China yet? I honestly don't know. But
I don't know either. But
either way, it's not making its budget back.
No.
I mean, it had a $70 million budget. It's made a tenth of that so far.
Yeah, it's going to be a flop. I mean, and why not? I mean, it features a sequence where we get to see computer code whizzing through computer systems like it's 1995.
With just the best CGI ever, too.
Yeah. Michael, man, why have you denigrated yourself like this? I mean, I will still love you because of Heat and Collateral, but I'm so sad.
He's fallen pretty far if the best he's going to turn out is Black Hat.
Yeah. I'm so sad, Michael, man.
But that weekend, we also got American Sniper, still #1 at the box office. Go patriotism!
Go jingoism! And again, we think it's a good movie, but the amount of hype and praise that this movie has gotten has been a little over the top.
And it's so much fun to make fun of it.
Yeah, it is. It's gotten to the point where it's fun for a laugh, because
the extremist reaction some people have had, like, in loving it, calling it, like, the best movie ever. Lots of people have legitimately said it's the best war movie ever.
I would like to introduce them to Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Or, heck, okay, I'd like to stack up one of Clint Eastwood's heroes, John Wayne, and the number of war movies he did. And let's stack him up against American Sniper and see who wins. American Sniper isn't even the best Clint Eastwood movie.
No.
I mean, just talking about his directed films. I'm not even talking about the ones he's acted in. The ones he's directed. Unforgiven is so much better than American Sniper. It's not funny. And yet...
I would maybe even take Flags of Our Fathers.
Possibly.
Maybe. It would be a debate, at least.
Yeah,
which is saying something.
Yeah, Gran Torino was pretty decent, too.
He didn't direct that, though.
Really? I thought he did.
No.
You sure?
Yep. I'm not sure.
I think he did.
Maybe.
So, I don't understand the hype that movie is getting, and it's making so much. Its opening weekend, in a 3-day weekend, it made as much money as Godzilla did last year.
No, it's better than Godzilla.
Yeah, and Eastwood did direct Gran Torino, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
you're right.
I mean, again, really good performance from Bradley Cooper. The action sequences are pretty good. But no, people, it is not the best war movie of all time. It's not the best Clint Eastwood film. It's not going to win. If it wins the Oscar, it will be one of those, this doesn't deserve it. Because, I'm sorry, there are better films than American Sniper.
There are all of the other films are better than American Sniper.
If we're honest, yeah, I'm sorry. I would have rather seen A Most Violent Year get into the discussion, or Nightcrawler, 2 Days, One Night, and I could list a dozen more films that I thought were better than American Sniper.
Yeah.
So, again, good film, but don't call it the greatest of anything.
Now, I'm also reading that Foxcatcher expanded further that weekend.
It did.
We saw it, back in December? Or
I think you saw it you might have seen it in November or December. I think
it was
definitely not in January.
Way earlier. Yeah, but apparently it got released in 700 plus theaters that weekend, and we haven't actually discussed Foxcatcher yet, which is...
Do we need to?
Well...
I mean,
everyone else seemed to love it more than either of us did, which is astonishing.
I still don't understand how anybody loves this. I mean, I get saying that, yeah, the acting is really good.
Because it is.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, Mark Ruffalo, all great performances in that film.
Yeah.
But how do people love this movie? I mean, it's... and I'm not saying that dark and depressing movies can't be really good, because they absolutely can be. But this is so dour that it's amazing. There's no any sort of lightness to break it up. No. It leaves out important plot details because, in case you didn't know, which the film didn't tell you, dude was actually schizophrenic. He wasn't
that doesn't come through at all.
Yeah, it's not just that he's creepy because he's this rich guy or what have you. He was legitimately mentally ill. And yet you can't tell that in the movie at all.
No.
But the film doesn't bother to tell you that. So that was one of my most disappointing films of 2014.
Yeah, it was another one of those, hey, this looks like it should be contending for an Oscar, and then, well, it got a Best Director nod somehow. I don't understand that at all.
I love Bennett Miller as a director. I mean, Capote and Moneyball, both really good films. Yeah. But for this, no.
No.
I don't think so. And the ironic thing is this was supposed to come out in 2013 and then got delayed towards the end of the year. And so it got delayed by a whole year, and now we get it, and I was like, well, that was disappointing.
It really was.
So, yeah.
The next weekend, we got another 3 duds, which is just lovely. Which one of those would you like to discuss first?
Well, the one I liked the most, at least, was Mordecai, if only because it It's bad. I mean, we both agree on that. But
yeah,
it at least made me laugh a couple of times with Paul Bettany, and
okay,
his character was the best thing in this film.
It was by far the best thing in this movie.
Yeah, we treated to another goofy Johnny Depp performance. Yay.
Which hopefully we're done with them, but I know we're not.
Well, we're getting Alice in Wonderland 2 and Pirates of the Caribbean 5, so you tell me.
Can we not?
Oh, we're going to get it, and those movies are going to still make hundreds of millions of dollars. Unlike Mordecai, because Mordecai flopped.
I still can't believe Alice in Wonderland did as well as it did.
$1 billion.
I know.
Yes, it had the help of 3D, but still. Why anybody thought that was a good movie, I don't know.
I know. And Tim Burton's not even doing the sequel.
Yeah, that could be really good or really bad. It just depends on if they decide to keep all the aesthetics and the ugly CGI.
We'll see. I would rather see an Alice in Wonderland sequel than Mordecai again. And that's tough for me to say.
If they base it on the actual sequel to the Alice in Wonderland book, maybe. Maybe.
You know they're not going to do that. They're going to make up some family-friendly, completely dull story.
Alice in Wonderland was family-friendly.
No. They're going to make up a family-friendly one.
Maybe. Although the first one wasn't family-friendly by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure it was.
No, it wasn't.
It was rated PG.
It wasn't family-friendly. It was dark as all get out. That's not family-friendly.
I might be remembering a different movie.
You might be. I don't know. I mean, it's about a war for... The climax involves a war.
Yeah, but so does the second Chronicles of Narnia movie.
Yeah, but that's actually staged in a family-friendly way because it's C.S. Lewis. So, yay, C.S. Lewis.
Alice in Wonderland wasn't not family-friendly.
It's Tim Burton. When has Tim Burton done a family-friendly anything?
Beetlejuice?
That wasn't family-friendly.
All the kids love Beetlejuice.
The Nightmare Before Christmas isn't family-friendly.
Well, that's why I didn't mention that one.
Well, it's the closest thing to family-friendly because it's at least animated, but yeah. Tim Burton doesn't do family-friendly.
Does Batman count?
Which one?
The ones that he did?
Well, the first one has some dark elements to it. The second one is dark.
That's true.
I mean, the darkness of the second one is why he got booted from it, and they gave it to Mr. Schumacher for the third one.
Okay, Frankenweenie. There you go.
Fine, I will grant you Frankenweenie. If only because it was basically Boy and his dog, although I was so annoyed by that movie because they decided to... we can't show actual loss in this film. So, I mean, and I'm not talking about when he brings the dog back the first time.
And did he direct Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Yes.
Yes, he did. There you go. There's another one.
No, that movie is terrible. Are you kidding
That doesn't make it not family friendly, though.
Maybe. Johnny Depp again. Speaking of.
Yeah.
But enough Johnny Depp. We've reminisced enough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that same weekend we also got Strange Magic.
Which was the one I liked the most, if only because, well, actually I laughed more at Strange Magic than Mordecai, but that might just be me.
Yes, you are a twisted man.
And also, I liked the animation. The animation was pretty good.
The animation's okay. It's not the worst animation I've ever seen, but it is very garish and very creepy, especially because there are some characters that are clearly motion captured.
Yeah.
And motion capture can be... I mean, that's the really depressing thing is motion capture can be really, really good. I mean, Andy Serkis has made a career out of it in the last 15 years. And even, like, okay, if we're going animated films, The Adventures of Tintin is really good as a motion capture film.
Yeah.
But Strange Magic is ugly, largely. The characters are stock archetypes that are badly, badly written.
The story was terrible. I'll grant it that.
The story is... Well, of course it's terrible. It's ripping off a bunch of other better films. How could it be any good? And then there's some good singing, I will grant you, because Evan Rachel Wood and Alan Cumming do fine with that. But then there's Sam Palladio doing a southern twang for his idiotic blockhead character, and there's so much. And then it ends with Wild Thing with an acid trip animation. Why is this in a movie?
Well, they let some of the Inherent Vice writers jump over for a couple of days, and that's what they came up with.
Well, the writers from Inherent Vice was Paul Thomas Anderson, so he would have actually written something good.
Him and the novelist. Both of them. They worked on Strange Magic for a whole day and came up with that, and they kept it in the movie. Unconfirmed reports.
The only way Paul Thomas Anderson and Thomas Pynchon worked on Strange Magic is if, like, they wrote it and then the actual screenwriter tossed it out, because there's nothing.
No, there's not.
As good as Paul Thomas Anderson. I don't always like everything he does, but he's leaps and bounds better than the three people who wrote Strange Magic.
Well, Strange Magic felt like it was wrote around the songs.
Yeah,
so.
Pretty much, probably, because...
Yeah.
I mean, 5-minute juxtaposition. I'm so in love, I'm getting married. I'm never falling
I'll never
in love
again.
again.
And yet, I liked it more than the last film that weekend, which was The Boy Next Door.
Well, how could you like anything less than The Boy Next Door that weekend? That movie was terrible. Quite possibly the worst film of the new release this year.
Maybe.
I mean, Taken 3 could give it a run for its money, and The Loft could give it a run for its money, but...
Even Woman in Black for me.
Not quite The Woman in Black for me, but The Boy Next...
They're all varying degrees of bad.
Yeah. The Boy Next Door, I mean, Jennifer Lopez is so bad in that movie, and then I already talked about how bad the kid is. I mean... And yeah, he's 19. Oh wait, no, he looks like he's 30.
He's 30.
Yeah.
They put him on screen with someone who's actually like 19.
Yeah.
And, it's so bad.
It's terrible, and then it's an erotic thriller.
No, it's neither.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not erotic. It's not thrilling. There's no suspense. Why is Kristen Chenoweth in this movie? And why is she in Strange Magic 2?
What? How did Jennifer Lopez produce this movie?
Well, of course.
I
mean, you can tell the screenwriter is doing her first screenplay because it's so awful.
And then we move on to this week, which we've already discussed in pretty good length, I think.
Yeah, so all in all, January pretty much felt like a kick someplace painful, because... without Paddington and a couple of the expanded releases, this month was just bad. I mean, again, we expect it because it's January, but still.
It really is summed up by The Wedding Ringer being the second best movie.
Yep, that does it. But at least February looks kind of interesting, doesn't it?
It does. It has a lot of movies that I actually am interested in seeing. I mean, January there was like one, maybe.
Well, actually, probably not, because the best movie was Paddington, and the trailers for that made it look awful.
True.
So, the only films we were really looking forward to were the Oscar releases, and those largely lived up, but yeah.
I mean, okay, starting in the first week of February, we've got 3 wide releases. We've got Jupiter Ascending, we've got Seventh Son, and we've got the new SpongeBob movie. At least one of those I'm interested in seeing. How about you?
Could it possibly be the one that made both of our most anticipated lists with Jupiter Ascending?
I'm thinking it's that one.
That's probably a good guess. I mean, the Wachowskis are back doing sci-fi. It looks visually great. I am slightly worried about the characters because Channing Tatum still looks silly and Eddie Redmayne looks campy. But
it worries me. Every time I see the trailer, I'm getting a little more worried.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little scared, but... I gotta see it just because I want to support the Wachowskis in this, and it looks at least interesting. So we'll see.
It's gonna be visually stunning.
Yeah,
nothing else.
Better than the visuals of Seventh Son.
Oh, Seventh Son looks so bad.
The CGI on those monsters was so terrible.
And I mean, this thing, it was shot, in like 2012?
Something like that, because it was supposed to come out in 2013 and then got delayed because Warner Brothers said, nope, we're not going to release this.
But now it's finally... And funnily enough, it's getting released against a Warner Brothers movie in Jupiter Ascending.
Irony.
It's got good actors, and it's got Julianne Moore, who's probably going to win an Oscar. It's got Jeff Bridges in it.
Who's already won an Oscar.
Not had the best career lately, but it's still Jeff Bridges, and it's got it looks so bad.
Because
it looks worse.
It's just because it's easy to make a medieval fantasy movie, because all you need to do is get some swords, throw in some witches, and...
Mediocre CGI.
Mediocre? Are you kidding me?
That's putting it nicely.
That's beyond nice. That's like glowing. I'm sorry. Every time I see that ending scene where you get a thing and it turns into this gigantic lizard monster with chains, I'm like, ugh.
I mean, the third movie this week is the SpongeBob movie. The SpongeBob movie has better CGI than Seventh Son. That's
barely,
sad.
but even the CGI in that looks terrible.
Well, it does look terrible. I mean, it brings the SpongeBob characters to real life-ish thing, and
did we really need another SpongeBob movie? I mean,
did we really need a first SpongeBob movie?
No, not really. But
regardless of how it turned out, I mean, it turned out not terrible.
At least that was mostly animated. This looks like it's mostly going to take place in real life, and I'm like, no.
And it has Antonio Banderas stealing the Krabby Patty. That's
why would you? Is Antonio Banderas in some sort of financial trouble that he has to take this film? I mean,
maybe, or maybe he's doing it. Does he have kids? I don't know if he has kids. Maybe he's doing it for his kids. If he has kids,
maybe.
I mean, he did the Spy Kids movies too, which is
the first Spy Kids movie was at least okay.
That's true.
Great, but it was okay. And Robert Rodriguez directing helps.
Yeah.
Now the subsequent Spy Kids films are atrocious.
But, is he in the fourth one? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. He stayed on, which is interesting.
Yeah. So then we get into the second weekend, which honestly for me looks like the best weekend we're going to probably get in February, because starting off we have Kingsman: The Secret Service, which I still am angry that you have seen. But it comes out on the 13th of February finally.
Yeah.
And it looks awesome. I mean,
it is awesome.
It made my most anticipated list, so I love that. Another movie that made your list, 50 Shades of Grey, which I can't believe I'm saying this, but this looks like a more interesting movie than The Boy Next Door and The Loft put together.
It very well could be.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
Which, if
That's
you had told me that 50 Shades of Grey would be a better erotic thriller than either of those other two movies, I would have laughed at you. And yet it might.
Yeah.
I'm not going to guarantee that it is, but it might.
Well, I mean, that's why I wanted to see it, just to see what they made of this.
Yeah.
And I mean, Kingsman, I've seen. It's awesome. Go see it when it comes out. If you have a date who doesn't really want to see 50 Shades of Grey, go see Kingsman.
Or even if you do have a date that wants to see 50 Shades of Grey,
skip 50 Shades and go see Kingsman. Make it a date night where you're separate.
That or, okay, well, I don't want to separate couples, but okay, if you're going to do that, or... Okay, even if you have to go to see 50 Shades of Grey, still go see Kingsman anyway.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you? It's awesome.
Kingsman could very well wind up being the best action movie of the year. And
possibly.
That's quite amazing.
I mean, who would have guessed that John Wick would have been up there last year? Because we didn't even know about John Wick until like a month beforehand. And then, I mean, we had the Raid. We knew about the Raid 2, which that ended up being the best action film of 2014. So, yeah, it's possible Kingsman could be up there. I mean, it's Matthew Vaughn.
Yeah.
I love Matthew Vaughn. Why wouldn't I love this?
And he somehow turns Colin Firth into an action star, and he gives Colin Firth the best action scene that I've seen in quite a while, probably since The Raid 2.
Okay, so my only hope then is that Colin Firth doesn't decide to follow the Liam Neeson, Pierce Brosnan, Denzel Washington, Kevin Costner, let me be an older action hero mold. Unless it's being done very well each time by somebody like Matthew Vaughn, and then okay, maybe. But even still, because of the fact that Taken 3 was so bad, I want this older action actor thing to die. So,
much like found footage.
Yeah, I'm not sure
certain
which one
trends
I hate more.
we need them to disappear.
Just a bit.
Next weekend we have 2 comedies and then an inspirational sports drama. Let's begin with that one, since I might even just skip it in all honesty. It's McFarland USA, or as it's called in Canada, McFarland.
If you make me monologue this film, I will be so sad. This movie looks so terrible from its trailer. I mean, it's clearly getting this idiotic racial oh, it's so funny because he's a white guy named Mr. White, and he gets to coach a bunch of Hispanics because it's this California in a school that, I kid you not, is actually, I think, 97% Hispanic. So, and it's like, the fact that it points it out, I'm sorry, if you're so aware of your awkwardness in that regard,
don't do it.
Don't put it in the script. It's bad enough when it's obvious on screen. Don't put it in the script and have your characters point it, and then don't put it in the trailer. Yeah, and try to actually make it a comedic moment.
Yeah, I don't really... I don't want to see McFarland.
You and me both.
One that I am at least kind of interested in seeing is Hot Tub Time Machine 2, which is out that weekend. Because, I mean, the first one really surprised me. I didn't think it was going to be good. I laughed quite a bit.
I haven't seen it, but I'm going to before I see the second one.
Okay.
But watching the trailer just...
It looks bad. And this was another movie. It was supposed to come out at Christmas time last year, and it got pushed back, which is rarely a good sign.
Yeah, and I can certainly see why, because this... it doesn't look funny at all.
It doesn't, but then I thought the same thing about the first one, which is... I'm hopeful, but I'm not expecting it to be particularly good.
Yeah, neither am I.
Finally, we have The Duff, which is another one I've already seen, and it wants to be Mean Girls, and it's nowhere near as good as Mean Girls. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, Mean Girls would be charitable, because it doesn't deserve to be even mentioned in the same sentence as Mean Girls. Well, maybe Mean Girls 2, but... This is
another... It's better than Mean Girls 2.
One can only hope.
But this is another one that's just so on the nose with what it wants to be about. I mean, it monologues its entire purpose right before the credits hit.
Yep. Why do we need Ken Jeong in another film?
Oh, he's so bad. He's so bad.
I got sick of him after Hangover 1.
Yep.
Can we just not have... I mean, I don't mind him if he's playing a straight man, because then he's not, acting like an idiot. But, yeah, he's clearly playing an idiot here.
He has extended scenes in this that are just so bad.
Oh, wonderful. And, I'm sorry, when you make your whole movie about, oh, let's try to turn this actually pretty decent-looking actress into the ugly one, I'm like, that never works.
No.
And when you attempt it, it's clearly, okay, they're not actually unattractive, or the ways they go to try to make a character unattractive are so obvious that it's like, I don't buy what you've done.
What really made me laugh in this one is Mae Whitman and the guy, Robbie Amell, I think it is. They're both like 26, and then the villain in this movie is Bella Thorne, who's actually 17. And you're like, you guys are almost at... What?
Mae Whitman is in this?
She's the lead.
Oh. I didn't realize that was her.
Yeah.
Now I hate this movie even more, because I love Mae Whitman. How dare you try to turn Mae Whitman into an ugly girl, you idiot.
It's an ugly high schooler even. And I mean, it's not as bad for her as it is for the guy. The guy looks like very much like the boy next door. And,
and for those of you 30. For those of you who don't know, Mae Whitman is either known as Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender, or she was the one female.
She was the female X in
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Yeah,
she's awesome in both of those movies, or movies and TV show. But turning Mae Whitman into an ugly. Now I hate this movie even more, and I didn't even realize that was Mae Whitman. I realized it's a sin that I didn't realize that was Mae Whitman, because Mae Whitman's awesome, but maybe it was because I was distracted by the stupid character spouting off about how trying to turn her into an ugly girl.
Something you might be more interested in is the week after's one of their two releases in Focus.
Yes.
Which actually looks like it might be pretty fun.
If this can bring Will Smith back, I will be so happy. Because Will Smith has been in a lot of bad movies lately. I mean, we talked about his random cameo in Winter's Tale. I still can't get over that. 7 Pounds was terrible. Well, After Earth.
After Earth. Oh,
the
man.
biggest
No.
vanity project, if ever there was one, for him and his kid. It was awful. His character's name was Cypher Rage, and I still laugh whenever I think about that. And I love how the marketing material hid that it was directed by M. Night Shyamalan, because we don't. But let's be honest, it was still more Will Smith's movie than M. Night Shyamalan.
It was Will Smith literally just saying, "Hey, look at my kid."
Yeah, pretty much. This actually made my worst of 2013.
Oh, definitely.
Because it was so terrible.
Yeah.
But Focus, he looks like he's playing an interesting character. It does remind me a little bit of Ocean's 11 in a way, because he's playing a con man. But
Well,
then,
all heist movies nowadays, you kind of...
well, this is true.
You think of Oceans because it's like at the top of that genre.
Thank you, Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah.
But then Margot Robbie shows up, and I'm like gleeful, because Margot Robbie was so awesome in The Wolf of Wall Street that I'm like, yay, can we get more roles for Margot Robbie, please?
Yeah. She was great in that. She's going to be in Suicide Squad, the DC thing, which will hopefully not suck.
I'm going to withhold my views on Suicide Squad until later, but Margot. And it looks like a pretty interesting con artist movie. So yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to Focus. That's one of my, I think, top 3 films I'm looking forward to in February.
That weekend we also have The Lazarus Effect, which can we just skip?
Maybe.
Okay.
Probably not. But so basically, the premise of The Lazarus Effect is you have these scientists who are trying to invent this serum to bring people back from the dead, though not as zombies, but just as actual living things. And they actually succeed, but then things start to go horribly wrong. But then, of course, when they try to redo the experiment, one of their scientists, who's played by Olivia Wilde, gets killed. And so, because of random reasons, they decide to bring her back from the dead with the serum. Unfortunately, she's also brought back a demon from hell. Yay! Another generic possession movie that's not going to be scary at all, and probably is going to feature a ton of jump startles.
Yay!
What a way to close out the month.
Yeah. That's about all that really needs to be said about it, in all honesty.
Yeah, pretty much, because...
yeah.
Another dumb horror. I mean, admittedly, I'm not dreading it quite as much as every time I see the trailer for Insidious 3.
Yeah.
I've gotten the trailer so many times. Like, I got
don't need another Insidious movie.
Yeah. Loud bangs, loud bangs, loud bangs. February does look like a better month than January, if only.
Well, it has at least a couple of things to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, and we know that Kingsman apparently is really good, so we're guaranteed to have a good movie, at least one, and then if Focus ends up being as good as we think, and then
if Jupiter Ascending winds up being good at all.
Yeah, that, and if 50 Shades of Grey. How freaky would it be if 50 Shades of Grey ends up being one of the best films of February?
And in doing so, being one of the best films of the year up to that point. Hey, what are your top 5 of 2015? Well, one of them's 50 Shades of Grey. Uh-oh.
If that's the case, like, especially after, like, say, the end of March, then I'm probably going to be weeping a little bit, because, like, the first 3 months of last year were really good. So if we take a step back, then I'm going to be even more depressed. But it's too early to be talking about March yet. We'll get to that at the end of February. But yeah, February looks pretty good. I'm really anticipating Kingsman, Jupiter Ascending, Focus, even a certain curiosity about 50 Shades of Grey. Like, I could not anticipate 50 Shades of Grey because it's 50 Shades of Grey. But after The Loft and The Boy Next Door, I'm actually anticipating 50 Shades of Grey, and I can't believe I find myself saying that.
Just because it should be better.
Exactly. It actually looks competent. Kind of.
Kind of.
Yes.
You can make it regardless of the subject or the material you're basing a movie on. You can make a good movie anyway. So possible. Maybe.
I hope.
It's a curiosity anyway.
It's not even a morbid curiosity anymore, because like before it was just a morbid, but now I'm like, okay, well, I've already had to sit through 2 awful erotic thrillers. Okay, can you at least give me a decent one? Maybe? I don't know. I mean, and at least it's rated R, so I know they're not going to be skimping on any of the content. I mean, I love it when I see what it's rated R for, and unusual behavior is one of them. I'm like, what does that even mean?
To be fair, Boy Next Door and The Loft were also R. So that doesn't really guarantee anything.
True, but I don't think they're skimping on anything. I mean, when the trailer at least shows his collection of stuff.
They cut out one of the book's most controversial scenes.
Oh,
I can't remember exactly what it is, and it's probably not exactly appropriate for a clean iTunes podcast. But yeah, they said that they weren't including that like right off the bat because it would have gotten NC-17. So sure. They're cutting out at least some stuff. It still looks like it's going to be a pretty hard R, which is good.
Just a bit.
So we'll see. I mean, I haven't read the book. I don't think you've read the book. We won't know exactly what they've cut out because we won't have read the source material.
The simple fact that you even could suggest that I've read this book. I mean, are you kidding me?
Well, we're both, to an extent, people who hate ourselves and see and read stuff that we don't exactly enjoy.
I'm a masochist. I'm not that much of a masochist.
See, I didn't want to use that word when it comes to 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, why not? It's appropriate. I mean, the dude is a masochist. Well, actually, no, he's not.
No, he's not.
He's a dominant.
He is.
And she's submissive. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to bring in other terminology, but
whatever.
That's why you're here.
Fine. We'll save it for Valentine's Day weekend because it's gonna come up.
It's gonna come up.
There was an innuendo there. Crap. I'm sorry, listeners.
Just wait for that episode. We might have to change the clean tag on iTunes. We'll have an explicit episode.
We will try not to. But that.
Well, we managed to do it for both The Loft and Boy Next Door. So.
Yeah, but there wasn't a whole lot of...
There wasn't, no.
Much content in that. There actually looks like real content in this movie.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about February as a whole?
Not really. I've already said I'm really excited for it. Other than, yes, I'm still annoyed that you have seen Kingsman. And the fact that you can actually see a screening of Kingsman again, even before me, which...
I could see two. It's
I know.
Screening both of the next 2 Wednesdays.
But other than that, yeah, February... I guess one other thing I wanted to talk about is there's a couple Oscar expansions that we're getting here. Finally, like literally the week, I think, before the Oscars come out. In the middle of the month, also the same weekend as Kingsman and 50 Shades, we're getting Still Alice here finally. So next week, I get to watch Julianne Moore in Seventh Son, and then the week after that, I get to watch the film that's going to get her an Oscar, most likely. The irony there is hilarious. And then we're also getting Song of the Sea, which is the one of the best anime features that I haven't seen, and it looks really good, so I'm going to be pretty interested to see that. But other than that, yeah, February, I've said it before, it looks good, interesting, so cool.
That brings us to the conclusion of episode 5 of Mad and Mad at the Movies. You can follow Gerald on the Twitter at FilmFlashNC and at his website at filmflashnc.blogspot.com. I'm also on the Twitter at MartyrTweet and on the web at boxofficeboredom.com. Send us your comments, please. It helps us, maybe. I ignore most of them, though.
Just be nice about it.
Well, yeah. Next week, as we've mentioned during the look into February, we'll be looking at Jupiter Ascending, Seventh Son, and the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. Until next time, this is Mad and Mad at the Movies, signing off.
Take care, Internet.